In Ecuador, the electoral campaign for the presidential runoff election to be held on October 15th started. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was welcomed by his Azerbaijani counterpart in the autonomous Nakhichevan exclave. And in China, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad met Monday with the chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress of China in Beijing. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Ecuador, the electoral campaign for the presidential runoff election to be held on October 15th started. The electoral campaign began this Sunday and is expected to end on Thursday, October 12th, 2 days before the date of the runoff election. According to Ecuadorian legislation, during this period, candidates Luisa Gonzalez of the Citizen Revolution Movement and Daniel Noboa for the National Democratic Action Alliance may make use of the Electoral Promotion Fund for the second round and promote their proposals. Prior to the closing of the campaigns, it is expected that the candidates hold a debate on October 1st where they will discuss their vision of the economy, security, society, and politics of Ecuador. Brazilian President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva met with Vietnam's Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh on Monday in Brasilia during his official visit to the South American country. The Vietnamese Prime Minister's trip to Brazil is aimed at boosting cooperation between their nations and accelerating negotiations on the signing of bilateral and multilateral free trade agreements. His visit is also aimed at strengthening economic ties and focusing on people-to-people cultural exports and educational exchanges. Vietnamese Ambassador Pham Thi Kim Hoa stressed that the two nations will strive to increase bilateral trade revenue to $10 billion by 2025. Chin's official visit, the first by a senior leader of the two countries in 15 years, comes at a time when the two countries are preparing to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the founding of diplomatic relations, which began on May 8, 1989. Monsignor Pier Giorgio Bertoldi, Apostolic Nuncio of Pope Francis in the Dominican Republic, called for dialogue to resolve the conflict between the Caribbean nation and Haiti over the canalization of the Massacre River. Bertoldi led the Mass on the occasion of the Day of the Virgin of Las Mercedes, patron saint of the Dominican Republic, in the province of La Vega, where thousands of parishioners came to commemorate the feast. In his homily at the National Sanctuary, Bertoldi said that the issue of the canal being built by the Haitians on the Massacre River, which the two territories naturally share, must be resolved through dialogue. In this sense, the representative of Pope Francis urged that all voices be heard at the talks table, such as those of the farmers and traders who seek to support their families in the binational market. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez reported that a man threw two Molotov cocktails at the Cuban embassy in Washington, the United States. The attack occurred hours after the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, returned to Havana after having been in New York to carry out various activities and participate in the United Nations General Assembly. The foreign minister pointed out that there was no damage to personnel and that the details of the incident are still being clarified. Rodriguez commented that this is the second violent attack against the diplomatic headquarters in Washington since April 2020, indicating that on that occasion an individual fired an assault rifle at the diplomatic building. On Sunday, the Screenwriters Guild and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers in the United States reached a preliminary agreement to establish a new collective bargaining agreement. This agreement could potentially bring an end to the strike. The Actors Union has indicated that the potential agreement addresses all major negotiation issues, but the final wording is still awaiting confirmation. This dispute is causing delays in most Hollywood productions, even if the agreement is unblocked. It will be up to the studios to negotiate with the Actors Union. On May 2nd, screenwriters commenced their strike, demanding improved working conditions, regulation of artificial intelligence, and equitable compensation for every rebroadcast of their work, known as residual rights. In the United States, also an art exhibition in New York is featuring paintings, sculptures, and photographs by artists who have been incarcerated using art to address the problem of U.S. mass incarceration. The exhibition, located in the neighborhood of Harlem, is comprised of works by artists who have been incarcerated and offers hard facts such as the nation's exceptionally high per capita incarceration rate. One of the main artists, Mark Lockney, made a series of hundreds of portraits of detainees while incarcerated and said he intends for visitors to take away a sense of humanity from the people in prisons. On the other hand, U.S. academician and art curator Nicole Friedwood stressed that at the heart of the exhibition is a strong critique of a draconian U.S. prison system that needs to change.
I hope they take away a sense of humanity in the people that are put in prison, and that sometimes it's not about right and wrong. It's not about correcting or betterment. When you're putting people in prison, it boils down to money, and there are better ways to approach that. If crime reduction and public safety are the goal, prisons aren't the way to do that. Prisons have been known to
populations, right? So it's a system that reproduces inequality and that continues to impoverish and make vulnerable the lives of people who are already at the margins of society. So that's there's a critique of the system that's at the heart of this show. And also I think art by incarcerated people really speaks for itself in terms of, claiming their presence in a society, kind of dominated by forms of punishment that is meant to lock them out, right? So
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you can find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Monday arrived in Azerbaijan's autonomous Nakhichevan exclave upon the invitation of his counterpart Ilham Aliyev. Aliyev welcomed Erdogan with an official ceremony before holding one-on-one talks to discuss bilateral relations, as well as regional and global issues, particularly the recent developments in Nagorno-Karabakh. They will later hold a joint news conference. The leaders will also attend the groundbreaking ceremony of the Nakhichevan natural gas pipeline and inaugurate the modernized Nakhichevan military complex. Ankara and Baku agreed in 2020 in a memorandum of understanding to supply natural gas from Türkiye to Azerbaijan's Nakhichevan Autonomous Republic. The project will be realized through a partnership between Türkiye's crude oil and natural gas pipeline trading company BOTAS and Azerbaijan's state oil company SOCAR. Almost 3,000 displaced Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh have arrived in Armenia since their evacuation began on Sunday following Azerbaijan's recent military operation. Pictures show refugees, aid workers, and military personnel at an aid center in the Armenian city of Gorys as the country welcomes refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh. The government of the Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan reported that a total of 2,906 forcibly displaced people had arrived by Monday, of whom 1,100 are staying at a humanitarian center in the town of Kornitsor. The flow of citizens leaving the enclave is expected to continue, as Azerbaijan announced that it will reintegrate the area into its administrative scheme. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić said that 3 people killed in clashes with police in the autonomous province of Kosovo were shot by Kosovar snipers. The Serbian leader addressed the press regarding recent events, urging for the restoration of order and the protection of citizens. This came after separatist authorities in Kosovo accused criminal groups of Serbs of committing the murder of Kosovar policemen. Vučić denied that the act was planned and instead claimed that it was in response to repressive actions taken against the Serbian population by Pristina's agents. He called for calm and requested assistance from the international community in forming a union of Serbian communities in northern part of the country, complete with Serbian police to prevent any future conflicts. Similarly, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić denounced that the only desire of the separatist authorities in Kosovo is to bring the country into a conflict with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Also, during a message to the nation, he reiterated that there will never be recognition of an independent Kosovo and that Belgrade will make decisions in this regard that it will present to the citizens of the autonomous region of Kosovo and Metohija. He also informed that the Serbian authorities are still investigating the incident and expressed his condolences to the relatives of the murdered Serbs and the Kosovar policeman who lost his life. In Sweden, more than 100 people gathered in Stockholm to protest the government's decision to join NATO, calling for an end to war and rejecting alliance membership. Protesters expressed their opposition to the government's abandonment of Sweden's long-standing neutrality. Protesters said NATO is not a defense alliance, but rather a nuclear-armed alliance, serving the interests of the United States and waging wars abroad. They say joining NATO could lead to nuclear weapons deployed on Swedish soil, increasing the risk of nuclear attack, adding that Sweden's defense should focus on protecting its own territory, not fighting overseas wars under NATO command. The Swedish NATO accession issue has been under discussion for nearly a year within the military alliance. Only the Turkish and Hungarian parliaments are yet to approve its membership.
To be this neutral country.
The main purpose is that we want to stop the Swedish application to the NATO alliance because we don't want to be a part of that. We don't want to be a part of a war criminal alliance that is terrorizing all around the world and starting war in different innocent countries.
We had a reputation 20, 30 years ago to be this neutral country. We could mediate between different nations in war. But now that's all gone. We've all just decided to go with the United States side. And that's why we meet here. It's because we share these sentiments and we share this horror of what the future is going to be like.
Representatives of the 177 IAEA member states meet from Monday until the 29th of this month in Vienna, Austria, for the 67th session of the IAEA General Conference. Rafael Grossi, re-elected Director General of the agency, stresses that it is not abandoning Ukraine or the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant occupied by Russian forces since March 2022.
We continue. We are not going anywhere. We will continue there. 53 missions comprising a total of more than 100 agency staff have been deployed as part of the continued presence at all 5 nuclear sites in Ukraine. In the past year, 10 rotations of IAEA safety experts have crossed the front lines of war to access the plant. And we continue our work there, as you can see through our almost daily updates of the situation at the plant, which remains very, very fragile.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad met Monday with Chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress of China, Zhao Leiji, in the Chinese capital of Beijing. Al-Assad believes that the world needs to transition from a force-based system to one that is based on morality. He said that China, with its ethical policies and initiatives, should play a leading role in this transition. The president also praised China for its political support, as the country respects the sovereignty of other nations and opposes terrorism. Additionally, China has provided economic and humanitarian aid to Syria during the difficult times of the siege. Alivey, who was present, emphasized the importance of communication between legislative bodies to further strengthen the relationship between the two countries. On Monday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said Philippine vessels intruding into the adjacent waters of Huangyan Island violate China's indisputable sovereign rights and jurisdiction over the island.
Huangyan Island is an inherent part of China's territory, and China has indisputable sovereign rights and jurisdiction over Huangyan Island and its adjacent waters. On September 22, a Philippine vessel from the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources illegally intruded into the waters near Huangyan Island without China's permission and attempted to run the lagoon of the island. Acting within the confines of the law, the Chinese Coast Guard responded appropriately by intercepting and repelling the Philippine vessel, displaying professionalism and exercising restraint throughout the operation.
China also condemned the United States' cyber espionage on Chinese enterprises as it brings great risk to China's network security.
We condemn the irresponsible behavior of the U.S. government. Facts have once again shown that the U.S. government, on the other hand, engages in pervasive cyber espionage against China, which brings great risks to China's network security. On the other hand, it constantly creates and disseminates false information about so-called hacking attacks from China, which is a typical and hypocritical political manipulation.
The Chinese spokesman also stressed that the U.S. government uses as an excuse the issue of national security to suppress Chinese enterprises.
What is more noteworthy is that the article reveals that the U.S. government has been conducting cyber espionage on Huawei since 2009. For a long time, the U.S. has repeatedly suppressed Chinese high-tech enterprises, including Huawei, in the name of safeguarding national security. And the article points out that even by cyber espionage, the U.S. government still has not found the so-called evidence. This fully reveals that the U.S. government suppressed Chinese enterprises not because of the so-called national security, but because it was unable to take the lead in normal competition. It blocked the development of Chinese enterprises by illegal and unfair means.
On Monday, Thai authorities started implementing a visa waiver for Chinese travelers. On Monday, senior officials in Thailand welcomed a large group of Chinese tourists who arrived at Bangkok's international airport. This marked the beginning of a new visa-free entry program, which officials believe will give the country's tourism industry a significant boost. The government is now planning to promote Thailand's smaller cities as destinations for Chinese tourists in order to encourage them to stay longer. Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin has stated that the authorities' top priority is to address security concerns among tourists. The visa waiver program simplifies entry process for new visitors. We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.